from New York. This is Friday, November 19th, 718 days until the 2012 presidential elections. Yes, Mrs. Palin, there is a government death panel. It is in Jan Brewer's Arizona. Government action which will actually condemn some low-income Americans to death was passed this March by a Republican state legislature and signed into law by a Republican governor. It took effect the 1st of October. You will presently meet two men and their families who have been condemned to die by this de facto death panel. First, the background. Approximately 1,300,000 Arizona residents are covered by Arizona's version of Medicaid, a program known as Access. Faced with a massive deficit, Arizona lawmakers asked Access to identify possible spending cuts. Access got advice on these cuts from two companies, one of them owned by the same subsidiary of United Healthcare that provided insurance companies with data that helped them push costs onto patients. And that was used by Republicans as a supposedly non-biased source of information in the healthcare debate. The other company, run by a Republican donor, gave Access false information about transplants, specifically that bone marrow transplants never work, liver transplants rarely work. So the Republican-controlled legislature saved just under $5 million by no longer paying for them. No more transplants for pancreas, lungs, some heart transplants, livers for hepatitis C, bone marrow. It did not matter that Arizona would give up $15 million in matching federal funds by cutting that $5 million. It did not matter that the head of Arizona's largest adult bone marrow transplant program could have told them his bone marrow patients have a 42% survival rate. It did not matter that a 2007 memo from Access itself warned that without the transplants, quote, the number of hospitalizations and other expensive interventions will increase, along with the potential fatality rate. An Access spokesperson explained that the cuts did not really affect that many people because even though 98 Arizona residents covered by Access need exactly these kinds of transplants, quote, only about 15% of individuals would be able to get a match. One of them was Mark Price, a dad diagnosed with leukemia. He found a bone marrow match the same day Access ended transplant coverage. An anonymous donor came forward instead for him. But that was not an option for Francisco Felix. The 32-year-old father of four needs a liver transplant or he will die. And unlike bone marrow, which living donors can give, livers must be transplanted within 24 hours of the donor's death. He has waited for a donor since April. This Monday, a friend of the Felix family died. She donated her liver to him. Francisco Felix was prepped for a 10 a.m. surgery the next day. 10 a.m. came and went. He and his family had failed to raise the money in time, $200,000. So they took the liver away and gave it to someone else. Doctors say he has no more than 2 years in which to find the money and another liver, and the average wait time for livers is 756 days. 2 months ago, a transplant coordinator told 36-year-old Randy Shepard, who has cardiomyopathy, that he is next on the list for a heart transplant. But October 1st came and went without a heart. So even if he gets a heart now, he still has to come up with about $1 million to pay for his transplant. A Republican state legislator promises to revisit this issue when that legislature meets again in January. Arizona Governor Brewer refuses to call a special session for the purpose of shutting down her state's death panel. Quoting her, "We have a responsibility as policymakers to make hard decisions, and those decisions have to be made for the citizens of Arizona. Tough decisions, not an easy job for the legislature or me." Governor Brewer has, in fact, blamed Obama health care reform for this, even though her budget took effect before Obama health care reform did, and Republicans tried to pass these very same cuts in last year's budget, too. She has refused the request from transplant centers to call that special session unless someone can suggest how to cover the Access program's total billion-dollar shortfall. Arizona Democrats, meanwhile, have suggested she use federal stimulus money to fill the transplant gap. Brewer has refused, even though she was willing to use $1.7 in stimulus money just last year to repair the roof of the Veterans Memorial Coliseum. As promised now, we're joined by Francisco Felix and his wife, Flor, and their daughters, Carla and Jennifer and Jessica and Carmen. And we're also joined by Randy Shepard, his wife, Tiffany, and their children, Nathan and Kelsey and Krista. I'll say good evening to all of you at the same time. Krista, happy birthday, and thanks to everybody for all of your time tonight.
Thanks.
All right.
Thank you. It's good to be on here.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Flor, let me start with you.
Hi.
I know your husband does not speak English. We'll direct most of our questions to you, but I'd like to start by asking you to thank him for being with us and ask him how he's feeling tonight.
You want me to ask him?
Yes, please.
Dice, ¿cómo te sientes ahora?
Ahora me siento un poco mejor.
He feel better than the last days.
Pero días pasados andaba un poco desesperado por lo que nos había pasado.
Last day he was getting some desesperated because what was happening.
Mm-hmm. So tell us
now.
Tell us what happened on Monday
Yes.
night and then Tuesday morning at the hospital. Tell us what that was like.
Okay, well, what happened Monday night, I get a phone call from my friend. Just baby me. I get a phone call from my friend, and suddenly my friend passed away, and he wants to donate all the organs, and he called me and told me if made her liver match to my husband. So then we went to the hospital, and we find out, when I spoke with the liver coordinator, we find out that the liver matched to my husband. So then I start making a lot of phone calls actually, and then because the time was very important, so we don't have much time. So they decide to send my husband to the Good Samaritan and receive him over there. So they complete some physical exam, and at Tuesday in the morning, doctor came and told me, Flor, your husband, we received the results. Your husband is ready to go into the surgery, but Access didn't respond.
Wow.
And you just have 2 hours to find any organization or to have on your hand cash $200,000. So by that time it was impossible to us.
Yes. All right, Flor, stand by a second. I want to talk to Randy Shepard for a moment. Mr. Shepard, first off, thanks for your time as well. Give us the overview. How are you feeling tonight?
Thank you, Keith. I feel pretty good. I'm still at a somewhat high functioning level for somebody in my condition, I'm told, and I have my family with me, so things are pretty good. Thanks.
What would happen if you got a call tonight telling you that there was a heart available?
Well, because of the funding falling through, I'm not active on the list right now. I'm on the inactive part of the list until alternative financing is available.
Can you explain, with this platform available to you, Randy, explain to Governor Brewer why it's so important to fix this and not to wait till January when some of the legislators want to bring it up again?
Well, it would be great if that was the case. If somebody could sign something, do whatever, so that the funding would be there for me to get my heart. If it does, as I understand it, that the state's out of money, I understand that, and I'm not looking for somebody to invent money for me or money where there's not available. But I would love to see if some of the wasted money out there in government, I mean, you see it every day. Mm-hmm. I'd love to see some of that redirected into a program like this.
Do I have this right, Randy, that next year you qualify for federal assistance in this? Would that solve these financial problems?
Well, I'm currently on a long-term disability. Doctors have told me I'm unable to work in my plumbing business because of my condition. And after 2 years on the disability, I'll be eligible for Medicaid, which that comes in January. Mm-hmm. So from what I've been told, January I'll qualify for that. That will cover approximately 80% of my medical bills, which leaves about $100,000 to $120,000 that we'll have to raise, and we've got a fund set up right now through the national. There's a national organ transplant fund that we've set up in my name, mm-hmm. For that people can make donations.
Do I also understand this correct, that you had to join this access instead of get insurance elsewhere? Why would that have been the case?
Well, I've had, my heart issues have been ongoing since I was about 12. I had rheumatic fever when I was 12, and luckily I had a diligent, loving mother who persisted and got me diagnosed and taken care of in spite of numerous doctors who couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. But I had a relapse when I was 17. I had another case of it, and at that point, I had 2 artificial valves placed in my heart. So having had open heart surgery as a teenager, there just are no insurance companies that are willing to take on my case, and you know, understandably so. I'm a high expense person medically.
I understand that you understand, but I don't think the rest of America understands any of this. We're obviously limited in our time. Before we go, I want to mention that the National Transplant Assistance Fund, ntafund.org, and we'll give you that again in a minute,
yes,
is raising money for both of your transplants. Anyone can go online, donate to the Francisco Felix or the Randy Shepard Fund, or both of them. The address is ntafund.org. My thanks to all of you tonight, and obviously we hope for the best for all of you, and we'll keep you in our thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank you.
Thank you.